The WWE Universe just witnessed absolute chaos backstage as Seth Rollins completely lost control in a brutal rampage that nobody saw coming. What started as a typical Monday Night Raw quickly spiraled into one of the most violent backstage confrontations in recent memory, and the fallout from this is going to shake the entire company to its core. If you're not already following this channel for the latest wrestling news and explosive updates, hit that subscribe button right now because you don't want to miss what happens next. Seth Rollins has always been known as the architect, the visionary, the man who keeps his composure even in the most intense situations. But tonight we saw a completely different side of him, a side that was fueled by pure rage and vengeance. The Revolutionary has been dealing with an escalating situation involving Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed, two absolute powerhouses who have been making Seth's life a living nightmare over the past several weeks. These aren't just random attacks or typical WWE storyline beats. This has been personal, vicious, and calculated, and Seth finally reached his breaking point. The tension had been building for weeks now. Bron Breakker, the second-generation superstar with an unmatched intensity and raw power, has been on a mission to establish himself as the most dominant force on Monday Night Raw. His aggressive style and relentless approach have put everyone on notice, but Seth Rollins became his primary target. The attacks started small, a shove here, an intimidating stare there, but they quickly escalated into full-blown assaults that left Seth battered and bruised. Bronson Reed joined the picture shortly after, adding another layer of danger to an already explosive situation. Bronson Reed is not someone you want as an enemy. Standing at over 6 feet tall and weighing well over 300 pounds, he's a mountain of a man who can crush opponents with ease. His tsunami splash has ended careers and left countless superstars sidelined with injuries. When he aligned himself with Bron Breakker, it created a partnership that seemed almost unstoppable. Together, they've been hunting Seth Rollins like prey, attacking him from behind, ambushing him during matches, and making it clear that they wanted to end his career. Seth tried to handle it the right way. He went to management, he demanded matches, he tried to settle things in the ring like a professional. But Breakker and Reed weren't interested in fair fights or wrestling matches. They wanted destruction. They wanted to humiliate Seth and prove that his time at the top was over. Every week brought a new attack, a new injury, a new reason for Seth to question whether he could continue competing at the highest level. His family became worried, his friends urged him to step back, but Seth Rollins has never been the type to back down from a fight. Tonight was supposed to be different. Seth was scheduled for a promo segment where he would address the WWE Universe about his ongoing situation with Breakker and Reed. The plan was simple: get on the microphone, call them out, and force them to face him one-on-one in sanctioned matches where he could finally get his hands on them legally. But things didn't go according to plan. Before Seth could even make it to the ring, he spotted Bron Breakker walking through the backstage area with that cocky smirk on his face, completely unbothered by the chaos he'd caused. Something snapped inside Seth at that moment. All the weeks of attacks, all the pain, all the frustration came flooding out at once. Without warning, Seth charged at Breakker like a man possessed, tackling him into a stack of equipment crates. The sound of the impact echoed through the entire backstage area, and within seconds, both men were throwing wild punches at each other. Security tried to intervene, but Seth was fighting with a fury that nobody expected. He was throwing caution to the wind, landing shot after shot on Breakker, who was caught completely off guard by the sudden attack. The fight spilled through multiple backstage corridors. Production crew members scattered as Seth and Bron crashed through equipment setups, knocked over tables, and sent chairs flying in every direction. Seth wasn't wrestling anymore, he was brawling, using anything he could get his hands on as a weapon. He grabbed a production monitor and smashed it across Breakker's back, then picked up a steel chair and started swinging it with reckless abandon. Bron tried to fight back, but Seth's adrenaline and rage gave him an edge that the younger superstar couldn't match in that moment. Just when it seemed like Seth might actually get the upper hand, Bronson Reed emerged from around a corner. The massive superstar had heard the commotion and came running to his partner's aid, but Seth was ready for him. As Reed charged forward, Seth sidestepped at the last second and sent the big man crashing face first into a concrete wall. The impact was sickening, and Reed stumbled backward, clearly dazed from the collision. Seth didn't give him time to recover. He immediately started unloading with kicks and punches, targeting Reed's injured knee that had been bothering him for weeks. The backstage area turned into an absolute war zone. Multiple security personnel rushed to the scene, trying desperately to separate the three men, but Seth was fighting like someone who had nothing to lose. He broke free from security's grasp multiple times, each time launching himself back at either Breakker or Reed with renewed intensity. At one point, he grabbed Bronson Reed and drove him through a catering table, sending food and drinks flying everywhere. The crash was so loud that it could be heard in the arena, and the live crowd started chanting Seth's name even though they couldn't see what was happening. WWE officials arrived on the scene, including Adam Pearce, the Raw general manager, who was desperately trying to restore order. But even Pearce couldn't control Seth in that moment. The visionary was operating on pure instinct, years of being the professional, years of taking the high road, all thrown out the window in favor of raw vengeance. He wanted to hurt Breaker and Reed the same way they'd been hurting him, and he was succeeding in spectacular fashion. Blood was visible on all three men, though it was hard to tell exactly where it was coming from in the chaos. Bron Breaker eventually managed to get some space and grabbed a production crate, hurling it at Seth with all his strength. The crate connected with Seth's shoulder, spinning him around and giving Breaker a moment to catch his breath. But Seth barely seemed to feel it. He turned back around, his eyes wild with rage, and charged again. The two men collided in a tangle of fists and fury, rolling across the concrete floor as they continued to throw punches at each other. Bronson Reed tried to get back into the fight, but security had finally managed to create a barrier between him and the action. The fight continued for several more minutes, with neither Seth nor Bron willing to back down. Equipment was destroyed, production personnel were scrambling to protect expensive gear, and the entire backstage area looked like a disaster zone. At one point, Seth managed to get Breaker in a headlock and started dragging him toward the arena entrance, seemingly intent on taking their fight to the ring where the whole world could watch. But security finally got enough people together to physically separate them, creating a human wall between the two exhausted and bloodied superstars. Even as security held him back, Seth was screaming at Breaker, promising that this was far from over. His voice was hoarse from the exertion, his face was bruised and bleeding, and his expensive jacket was torn and covered in dirt and blood. But his eyes still burned with that same intensity, that same refusal to quit that has defined his entire career. Bron Breaker was in similar condition, held back by his own contingent of security, yelling back at Seth with equal venom. Bronson Reed was being checked by medical personnel, clearly worse for wear after being driven through multiple objects during the brawl. Adam Pearce finally got on his phone, presumably calling WWE headquarters or higher-level management to figure out how to handle the situation. This wasn't just a backstage scuffle or a worked fight for the cameras. This was legitimate chaos that had spiraled out of control, and there would be consequences for everyone involved. The question now becomes what happens next. Will Seth face suspension for attacking Breaker and Reed without provocation? Will Breaker and Reed face punishment for weeks of attacking Seth? Or will WWE management decide to use this explosive situation to create the most anticipated match possible? The WWE universe is buzzing with speculation about where this goes from here. Social media exploded immediately after the incident, with fans sharing videos and photos from the backstage area that various personnel had leaked online. The hashtags related to Seth Rollins, Bron Breaker, and Bronson Reed were all trending worldwide within minutes. Fans are divided on who was in the right, with some supporting Seth's decision to finally fight back against his tormentors, while others argue that he went too far and should have handled things through proper channels. Former WWE superstars and current wrestlers from other promotions have also weighed in on social media. Many praised Seth for standing up for himself and refusing to be victimized any longer. Others questioned whether this kind of uncontrolled violence sends the wrong message, especially with so many younger fans watching. Wrestling legends who've been through similar situations have shared their own experiences, noting that sometimes a wrestler reaches a point where they have to take matters into their own hands, regardless of the consequences. The medical staff attended to all three men after the brawl was finally broken up. Seth was seen limping slightly as he made his way to the trainer's room, though he refused help from anyone, insisting on walking under his own power. Bron Breaker was holding his ribs, suggesting that some of Seth's shots had done legitimate damage. Bronson Reed needed the most attention, with trainers examining his knee and the cut above his eye that was bleeding profusely. Reports from backstage indicate that all three men refused to go to the hospital, wanting to stay at the arena in case the fight reignited. Triple H, WWE's chief content officer, was reportedly furious about the situation. While backstage chaos can create great television and storyline opportunities, the uncontrolled nature of this brawl and the potential for serious injury put the company in a difficult position. There are insurance concerns, legal concerns, and the simple fact that WWE has a responsibility to keep its performers safe even when they're engaged in violent storylines. A meeting was immediately called with all parties involved to discuss what happened and determine the next steps. The rest of the Raw roster was apparently shocked by what transpired. Several wrestlers who witnessed parts of the brawl described it as unlike anything they'd seen in years. This wasn't choreographed or staged for dramatic effect. This was three elite athletes fighting with genuine emotion and physicality. Some younger wrestlers admitted they were scared by the intensity and violence of the confrontation. Veterans noted that it reminded them of the old days when backstage fights were more common and the line between storyline and reality was much blurrier. What makes this situation even more complex is that all three men have legitimate claims to being in the right. Seth Rollins has endured weeks of unprovoked attacks and has every reason to defend himself. Bron Breaker is trying to establish himself as the next big thing and sees taking down a legend like Seth as his path to superstardom. Bronson Reed has his own agenda and reasons for targeting Seth. There are no clear heroes or villains here, just three competitors with different motivations all colliding in the most violent way possible. The implications for upcoming WWE Premium live events are huge. Fans are already demanding that this situation culminate in a major match, possibly at the next big pay-per-view. But what kind of match could possibly contain this level of hatred and violence? A traditional singles match seems inadequate. A triple threat might work but could feel too chaotic. Some fans are calling for a street fight or no-holds-barred match where all three men can unleash everything they've been holding back. Others want to see Seth get his one-on-one opportunity with each man separately, giving him a chance to settle both scores individually. The business side of WWE is certainly paying attention as well. Controversy and chaos drive viewership numbers, and this incident has created exactly the kind of buzz that makes casual fans tune in to see what happens next. Raw's ratings for next week are expected to spike significantly as people want to see the fallout from tonight's brawl. Merchandise sales for all three wrestlers will likely increase as fans pick sides and show their support. From a pure business perspective, this kind of organic, emotionally charged conflict is exactly what WWE wants, even if the uncontrolled nature of it creates some concerns. Backstage interviews attempted to get comments from all three men, but none were willing to speak on camera immediately after the incident. Seth was seen pacing in his locker room, still clearly amped up from the adrenaline of the fight. Bron Breakker was huddled with his team, presumably discussing strategy for how to respond. Bronson Reed was still with medical staff but was overheard telling them he'd be ready to fight again the moment he got cleared. The hatred between these three men is real, and it's not going away anytime soon. As the show continued, various wrestlers were asked for their reactions to what happened. Some praised Seth for finally standing up for himself. Others criticized him for losing control and putting everyone backstage at risk. A few admitted they understood both sides and noted that in Seth's position, they might have done the same thing. The wrestling community is clearly divided on how to view this situation, which only adds to the intrigue and drama surrounding it. This entire situation raises questions about the culture within WWE and professional wrestling as a whole. How much violence is acceptable backstage? Where is the line between passionate competition and dangerous behavior? How should management handle situations where legitimate animosity develops between performers? These are complex questions without easy answers, and tonight's incident brings them all to the forefront. Wrestling has always walked a fine line between sports entertainment and legitimate athletic competition, and moments like this highlight just how blurry that line can become. The night ended with all three men leaving the arena separately, each one making it clear through their actions and words to those around them that this is far from finished. Seth Rollins reportedly told people in his locker room that he's just getting started and that Breakker and Reed have no idea what's coming for them. Bron Breakker was overheard saying he's going to make Seth regret ever putting his hands on him. Bronson Reed promised that the next time they meet, Seth won't be walking away. The stage is set for an ongoing war that could define Monday Night Raw for months to come. What we witnessed tonight was more than just a backstage brawl. It was a release of weeks of built-up tension, frustration, and genuine conflict between three of the most intense competitors in WWE. Seth Rollins showed us that even the most controlled and professional wrestler has a breaking point, and when that point is reached, all bets are off. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed learned that targeting a legend comes with consequences, and that sometimes the prey becomes the predator. The fallout from this is going to be massive, and everyone in WWE is going to be affected by it in one way or another. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell because the story is developing rapidly and you won't want to miss any updates. This is the kind of situation that could change everything in WWE, and we'll be here covering every single development as it happens. The war between Seth Rollins, Bron Breakker, and Bronson Reed has officially begun, and based on what we saw tonight,